We have a lot to cover in 15 minutes, and I want to make sure we have enough time to play our fun introductory game, as well as get into some of the things that we can learn from this experience. I'm Sister Flewallen, Kim Flewallen. I'm from Provo, Utah. This is my husband, who's come along to be my tech guy. He actually works for the church too, and he does that for a living. He's an IT guy for the church out in Draper, Utah. So I'm very glad he could come and help me. Our topic today on the board is frequent feedback, faux pas, and fixes. This has been a topic that's been on my mind a lot. I have, this is probably my 10th or 11th semester working for BYU-Idaho. The second semester I taught for BYU-Idaho, they asked me to be a TGL. And so as part of that responsibility, I was able to suddenly just see a lot of feedback information from the students for all of my instructors as well as my own, and also hear from the instructors themselves on what they were doing, to see what kind of feedback that they were giving to their students. And some amazing things are happening in our feedback. As online instructors, this is one of the most important things we can do, is to give feedback. In fact, it's probably the biggest way that we teach, is through our feedback. So it's important that we get it right, that we're giving the students what they want, what they need, and what is professional for us to give to them as curriculum and along with our standards and all of our rubrics. So because it's been on my mind, I thought I would do kind of an informal survey for this presentation and take some feedback from the students, from a whole bunch of students across many different courses, and see what the commonalities were in kind of a fun Family Feud kind of a way. I also, some of you might have participated in, did an informal survey for the instructors, from the instructor side, to see what kind of fixes that they might have in their mind for what they could do better to improve their feedback. So to introduce this topic and to introduce the 100 responses I got from our students and the 100 responses I got from our teachers, I put it into a Family Feud game. Now you probably got a ticket. I need the part that says ticket. If you'll just hand those down the row and put them in this bag. I'm going to call up 5 people to be on one team and 5 people to be on another faculty family team. And those people are going to compete for some awesome feedback. Oh, does anyone else got one? Okay. In fact, this is one of the best feedbacks you could ever get. How many of you have had a bueno bar before? These are hard to find. I had to go all over Provo. In fact, if you want to go to them, there's a little place called Sweets or Poppin' Sweets that's right there by the BYU Provo campus that has everything from all over the world.
There's a place in town that has them here.
Is there really?
Running for Sweets on Main Street.
I might have to stop there. I'm going to give all these away. They are good. They are very bueno. So that is a start for our feedback. Bueno, you want to earn one of these bars. But to begin with, we need 2 families. The first family, and I'm just going to read the last 3 numbers, is 071. And if I call your number, come on up here. 073. Yes. 072. 075. And 067. Sorry. Okay, this is our first one. If you'll come stand by the piano, this is our faculty family number 1, who we will meet, and I'll ask you your name and where you're from and what you teach. We'll play our game. Okay, and we need a second family who is going to stand a little bit farther back, right by this pole here, whatever that is, that little pull out part. Okay, so 060. All right. Yay! 057. 061. Maybe I should make these up more. 2 more. 065 and 076. Okay, do we have both of our families here? Oh, these are wonderful faculty families. Now I'm going to ask, since you already kind of lined up nicely, good job, the first person on each of our families to come up here, and you're going to compete to see which family starts and which family gets to try to guess, you know, how the game goes. Come on up here. Here's how it works. You have to put your hand down here. And when we're done reading the question, you have to be the first to grab that ball.
Okay, now wait. So I'm like, do I look back at my team to see if they know the answer, or I have to know the
You
answer?
just have to come up with a guess. You just have to come up with a guess. Okay, so we're ready to begin. Hit begin.
All right. Okay, here's the question.
Name a complaint a BYU-I student may have about his or her feedback. Wow, this is pretty competitive already. Tammy, tell us a complaint.
That they didn't get enough feedback.
That they didn't get enough feedback. Let's count that as this one. That, survey says, is number 2. Not enough help with mistakes. Now, he does get a chance to see if he can get the number 1 answer. Let's see. Go ahead.
The feedback wasn't specific enough.
Not specific enough. Oh, yes. Sorry, you guys have to go back
Good job.
to your team. And this team is going to be the one that comes up. Now, you started. Tammy, tell us where you're from and what you teach.
I am from Queen Creek, Arizona. So, and I teach Family Science 150, which is Intro to American Family Studies.
Oh, well, how exciting. Okay, so since you started, we're going to start with Megan. Tell us where you're from.
From Manan, Idaho. It's about 15 minutes from here.
Well, this is right in your backyard. How nice. And what do you teach?
Same, the family 150 class.
Okay. Well, your question, again, is name a complaint a BYU-I student might have about his or her feedback. I'm going to grab some.
They didn't get any feedback?
They didn't get any feedback. Survey says, here's our survey guy. I'm thinking this might be our first. Sorry. Sorry. That was a good answer. Holly, where are you from?
I'm actually here from Rexford.
From Rexford. Oh, well, 2 people that are right in the back door here. What do you teach?
LR 111, library research skills.
Okay, library research skills. How fun. And what do you think a complaint might be a BYU-I student might have about his or her feedback?
Wasn't enough positive and too much negative.
Wasn't enough positive and too much negative. I think that counts.
Which one?
Survey says overly critical. Good job. Well, you guys have gotten the bottom 2 and one of the top ones. I hope you're thinking real hard, working together, collaborating to see what that maybe that number 1 might be. We've only got 1 strike so far. So Phyllis, tell us where you're from.
I live in Antelope Falls, so
Oh,
we're all like,
wow, everybody's from here. That's awesome.
and I do English 106.
English 106. Oh, that's what, is it a pathway?
Pathway.
Yes, awesome. I teach pathway too, so it's no partial. Name a complaint a BYU-Idaho student might have about his or her feedback.
I seriously am drawing a blank.
Now, can we collaborate as a
You can
team?
give her hints. Yes.
I was just talking about that coming down here. That they didn't get it early enough, like.
Didn't get it early enough. Survey says number 3. That's our number 3 response. Ladies, okay, Denise, where are you from?
I'm from West Jordan, Utah, and I teach Pathway,
Oh,
GS
cool.
120, and my students would say they don't know where to find the feedback.
They don't know where to find
And that's
the
probably
feedback.
not it, but a
Hmm.
lot of times they don't.
I'm thinking that's not on the list. I'm sorry. 2 strikes. I hope you guys are ready back there. Okay. We still have number 1, 4, and 5 that we haven't come up with. Holly, or I'm sorry, Tammy, name a complaint a BYU-I student might have about his or her feedback. You can help me. Don't they usually do the little They're all drawn blank. And keep in mind, this was just how I categorized the 100 responses, so it's a little bit tainted there too.
Okay, so read it one more time.
Name a complaint a BYU-I student might have about his or her feedback.
Something that they didn't think the score was fair. They disagree with the score. I don't know if the score is feedback.
Got an answer?
Okay, something around, like the score, like their grade. didn't-
Not happy with the score?
Yeah.
Survey says? I don't think it's on there.
Okay, we're gonna steal.
I don't know. I think, is that third strike?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Go
Well,
for the steal.
we can go for the steal. Faculty family number 2. You got it? What have you got?
It's too generic, it's not specific enough, not personal to them.
Not personal to them. Survey says? Good job. Well, faculty family number 2, you have stolen it. So you guys get to go pick who you know you are. And I'm going to call up 2 new families. Thank you.
Number 5.
Oh, let's see. Let's see the other ones first. Number 5 was? Lax. You're supposed to read this with lax spiritual encouragement. Number 4? Need more variety and feedback, which he kind of said both. But he said personal. So good job. Come on up and get a plate of faculty family number 2. You get to come up here. And I'm going to call 2 new teams. We're doing a little bit different than status quo. Okay, 2 more families, and this time it's from the instructor perspective to see what the instructors thought they could do to improve their feedback. And we're going to look for some correlations. So I have 66, 066, 062, 070, 079, and 068. That's our next family. Yeah, almost everyone to participate. And our second faculty family this round is 058, 064, 059, 069, and 077. And who were the 2 lucky people that didn't get to participate? Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, I don't know that I can stand for that.
You're fine. Okay, send up your first 2 people. We're going to do the next round. Go, faculty family. We have Brittany and Rachel. Nice. Okay, put your hand right in front of it, and let's begin. Okay, name something you can do to improve your feedback. Whoa, you got it. Wait no more, I can tell. Okay, what have you got?
Be more specific in what I say.
Be more
I feel like
specific.
my students make the same mistakes, and I don't know how to get them to improve their mistakes. So finding a new way to tell them to improve.
Finding a new way to tell them to improve.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Survey says, use more variety. So find different ways to tell them how to improve, like calling, Skyping, emailing. Those are our basic venues for communication with them. So sorry, they're going to. It's always for me. Oh, you can still. I forgot. I'm sorry. My family feud is a little bit. If you can name or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can steal this. So what have you got?
Okay, so the question is, how can we improve the most?
Name something you can do to improve your feedback.
To personalize it more.
To personalize it more. And survey says, yeah. You can probably already think of a correlation between what our students wanted and needed and what our faculty is saying they can improve most. All right. So you guys huddle up. You guys, Rachel, tell us where you're from.
Idaho Falls.
Idaho Falls. Everybody's really good. How many are not from Idaho in this class? Me too. Oh, that's about half of them. You guys are just lucky. Okay, so Celeste, name something you can do to improve your feedback.
More frequent.
More frequent feedback. I think that works. Give more feedback than required. As you know, if we look at our standards, we're required to do what? At least once on one assignment with feedback. And usually that translates into one or two, because there's usually a couple a week that require some feedback. So good answer. Okay, who's next? Is that Kira?
Kiera. Yeah.
Kira. Where are you from?
Rexford now.
Rexford now. You just moved here.
No, 5 years ago.
Okay. Well, name something you can do to improve your feedback.
Faster turnaround time.
Faster turnaround time. Okay. Survey says?
What?
Timely?
Oh.
Be more consistent and timely. I was almost looking at this 7 again. Yeah, be more consistent and timely. That's a really important thing that was also a correlation with what we had on our student side of things. Okay, good answer. And who's next?
I'm Danae Barnard, and I live in Pocatello, Idaho.
In Pocatello, Idaho. Oh my goodness, all of our faculty families are from Idaho. Okay, well, name something you can do to improve your feedback.
Include more spiritual thoughts or spiritual.
Oh, survey says, invite the spirit, pray for guidance before grading. That's something we can all definitely do, and we should be doing, because that really is how we can see what our students need. We really don't know them on a personal level at home in their town or wherever they're from, but when the spirit guides us, we can know what their needs are just by discerning through the spirit, and that's a very important part. However, you notice on our survey it was the 7th thing down. Only 6% of our instructors said that. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Okay, who's next?
Seth Saunders.
Seth Saunders. From Orem, right next door. I'm from Provo, so neighbors. What do you think? Name something you can do to improve your feedback.
I was thinking about how or I guess maybe this is more personal, is really connecting the feedback to personal experiences so that they see. I mean, I know just this last couple of weeks, I've gotten feedback from students saying, we want to hear more about your personal experiences and how I can connect that to my learning or whatever. So
connecting,
partially up there, kind of maybe with personal.
Making it personal, yeah.
But it's really more about real life experiences. Why are we a teacher? Well, obviously we're teaching because of our experiences and background. So making that connection to the students and the material. So I'm trying to cover 2 core days.
I'm thinking the survey might have something for you. The survey says, give growth mindset and lifelong learning feedback. Does that kind of encompass what you're saying? Nice feedback. How many of you have heard of this before? The growth mindset. Have you read that article by Lindsay Call? That's in our online community. It's amazing. If you haven't read it, you should read it. And I'll refer back to that a little bit later as we get going. But that and lifelong learning is something we definitely need to be encouraging with our students. It's not just about whether they got the correct answer, about fixing mistakes. It's like they said in our meeting prior, that personal connection. That's what changes lives. That's what makes them feel the Savior's love, and that's what makes them change and want to be a better student and become a great student. So I think that one's, only 9% of our instructors mentioned that, but I don't know how many have actually have read through that information and learned about this. So I think this could be a higher priority if more people know about it. Okay, who are we back to? Rachel. You guys haven't had 1 strike yet, have you?
No.
Oh my gosh, this is a strong family. Go team. Okay.
More positive, keeping our feedback more positive.
More positive.
Yeah.
That is important. However, more positive, maybe not.
The compliment sandwich, the negative.
Yeah, I have read that one, the compliment sandwich. Yes, I don't know. Survey says? Did not make the survey. Oh dear. The first strike. Celeste, can you save them?
Oh, I don't know. I can tell you, I'm from Texas.
Oh, Texas. There you go. Can the Texans save their family?
I know. No,
There's a black sheep in the first strike.
Okay, I'm just gonna say more specific suggestions for improvement.
More specific suggestions for improvement.
Okay,
Good job. You're on a roll.
You got it.
Okay, there's one more, and it's the lowest one.
Only one person said it.
Yeah, add those up. You see how many people said this one. Name something you can do to improve your.
Can we help?
Yeah.
What about like explain why they got their grade out of something? Included in all of it. Just say it. Is that the spirit?
No, I don't know. That's just praying for you. I don't know.
Unless you have a different idea, because I'll take that idea.
You've got 2 strikes, so it's okay if you miss one. You guys are be thinking, what could that last one be? Think like an instructor. Something you can do to improve your feedback to students.
Offer additional outlets for feedback. So like additional opportunities to get feedback for, you know, like outside of just the normal, something's turned in, you get a grade, like, that makes sense. Give them opportunities for.
Use more variety.
Well, I was thinking like,
What do you think the difference?
you know, like in English, I say, if you want me to see it before you turn it in for a grade, email it to me,
pre
and I'll send it back to you before you grade, before I actually grade it. Like,
So outside of the normal,
yeah.
what we think.
But maybe I should change my answer.
Maybe. Let's see what the survey says. Sorry.
I'll try to get their testimony.
Wait a minute, I still get to the family reunion.
Anybody else have any better ideas?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone?
One last chance. No.
Yeah, share your testimony with them and try to, just make connections, make them feel loved. I don't know, but they're all included.
All included.
Included in numbers 1%.
Okay. Survey says? Oh, sorry. Well, they only have one chance to steal this. Still win it. You still can win it. We'll give them a second. Have you got a good one?
Okay, we're gonna say, to have better time management in our grading, because that's usually why it's not personal and it doesn't seem like it's very specific, is because it's hard to have enough time to meet that need for all the students.
Which is a very good point, because our students want that timely feedback, and yet to give good feedback, it takes time. And so that is really kind of an oxymoron. But what does the survey say? Oh. Any guesses from the audience? Oh, no guesses. 3 of our instructors. So if you would have just said, I don't know, you could have Wait, I was going to say stop there. Now we have to have a tiebreaker. I don't know.
Really?
Oh, no.
They won. Do they win?
They won.
How do the rules go? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, if you didn't steal it, then it's a fault.
Then you win. Oh, awesome. Can you grab your Bueno bar? Wonderful. Love that next. Well, we're going to take a closer look at this now. Let's go back to the beginning. And I love this cartoon. I came across as I was preparing for this. It says, well, you've been a pretty good horse, I guess. Hardworking, not the fastest critter I've ever come across, but. And the horse stops and says, no, stupid. I said not feedback. I wanted a feed bag. And I thought, you know what? This happens probably more often than we like to admit with our what we think is a fix for what our students want, when really They might have wanted something different. So let's put both of our lists up there side by side and see if they align. Keep going one more. Okay. So this was my 100-person survey for each of them. I only had 7 categories for the students, and I put 8 because of this 3 that I wasn't sure what to do with, because they really just said, I have no idea. And some of them actually said, my feedback's good enough, I don't need to change. And I thought, that's pretty confident. I don't know if I would be as confident to be able to say that, but I think if you're pretty sure about that, maybe you don't need to change anything. You've got this down to a science. But I think for most of us, we have that growth mindset. There's always something that we can do better, that we can improve upon, and it might not be doing more, right? Sometimes improving our feedback might actually mean pulling it back and doing more of what the student wants, but maybe not so much, so that we're overwhelmed by how much time that takes. We want to do a really good job and really great feedback, but like we mentioned earlier, that takes time. So I'm going to have you have a partner. Whoever's sitting on your little table is your partner. And I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes just to take a look at these 2 lists. I don't know if those of you in back might come forward, and see if you can see some correlations. Just write down 1 or 2 correlations, and we'll talk about what correlations you might see.
Correlations between the 2.
Clarify this between the 2.
Oh, yeah, correlations between the 2.
Yeah. When the students say they want more help, so when like more help with mistakes, so they don't you tell them that they already read and they're still not doing
Okay, take about another 30 seconds and wrap up your short list.
They need to show more of the positive. So we're good. You're really good. But I will. I'll be
Okay, we want to have time to discuss this as a group, so I'm going to go around. I think we'll start maybe in the very back, and we're just going to go table by table and tell us what alignments or correlations that you found between these 2 lists. And I'm sorry, Holly, whoever, I can't, Holly.
Yeah, so it says like 2 sides of the same coin, where you have the student perspective and the faculty perspective of the same issues.
The student perspective and the faculty perspective, and sorry, I missed what you said last.
Same issues.
Oh, on the same issues. A lot of the same issues are up there. They might be a different number in priority of what came up in this 100-person survey, but with only 100 people, it's kind of hard to prioritize everything on there anyway. Okay, good. So a lot of the same issues. Yes?
I thought it was really interesting that on the student side, the more spiritual came up so high from the bottom. That it's something that students are that asking for, not just saying, you know, it's nice. Because I always thought that it would be overbearing to include too much spiritual in a class, but I think students are needing that. They're expecting that.
They are to a degree, at least. At 8% said they would like to see more of this spiritual feedback. And only 6% of our faculty, so that, you know, when you're talking about 100%, they're almost really kind of close, a little bit. You know, they both are thinking along those lines. We've got to include the spirit. That's not always easy to do in a course curriculum that's very academic, but it can be done. I'd love to hear some ways that some of you share the spirit in your classes.
Well, sometimes I find it a little bit overwhelming to try and like write down a personal testimony to each and every student, because that takes a long time, a lot of thought. And so what I've actually received some ideas from other people in my teaching group and maybe on the community, I don't remember where I found it, but someone said to make templates of like a quote, a spiritual quote for certain assignments, whether that's in my class, they do vocabulary quizzes. So this week I had just a quote from President Hinckley that said, basically, don't get discouraged. Things will work out. Because a lot of times I think vocabulary can be discouraging. Or I'll find a quote in relation to goal setting, and I'll make a template of that, and then also like sign my name at the bottom, and then I'll write a personal note at the beginning of the assignment, and then insert the template that has a spiritual quote. And I Skyped with one of my students yesterday, and she told me that that's one of her favorite things is when I include quotes.
When you include a spiritual quote, something that is related to what they're talking about, and you're personalizing it by adding a little bit at the beginning and signing it by your name. And there's other ways that we'll talk about that we can use those templates. Those templates, how many of you use templates in here, in your feedback? And I do too. And the longer that I teach, the more that I seem to accumulate my list. So I understand that is changing with our new I learned. That's one of the more drastic changes. I hope you're all saving those to a document somewhere so that you can still use those. But they are kind of critical because you're right. We want to give good, detailed, and spiritual feedback. And if we had to come up with something new for all of our students in our class, that would really take time. We would not meet our 7-day requirement for sure if we had to do that. Great insights. Okay, what else did you come up with? Maybe we don't have to go around the room in order. Yes.
We were just discussing how it's hard to know what each individual student wants in their feedback, because somebody may want something more spiritual, somebody wants something more specific.
Absolutely.
So we were thinking that it might be a good idea to just kind of let your students know either in an email or in a discussion board or something, and just say, if you're not getting what you want specifically out of the feedbacks, let me know so I can give you what you're looking for. So just opening that line of communication with them, you know.
Huge. Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. Asking the student directly, you know, here's what I do, just being straightforward. What more can I do for you specifically? And if you're not getting that, let me know, because they're probably not the only one, right? In fact, most of the time, there's those few that are brave enough to ask questions are really speaking for a great majority in the class often. So that's a perfect one. Ask them directly. And that's not really a part of our list here, but that would definitely help this correlation go a little bit more one-to-one, I think. Good insight. I love it. Okay, what else?
We were just talking about the late in responding, how it's a lot higher on the students list. I mean, like the difference between 17% and 8%. And we're saying maybe at the beginning of the semester, like students might have unrealistic expectations on what to expect. So maybe you should say at the beginning of the semester, like, the standard is that I will have feedback to you 1 week after the assignment is due, so that they kind of know that's what to expect, so that, you know, they're not looking for it like the day after,
That communicating that is so important. Yes.
I'd say with that, I mean, it depends on the subject matter, but, you know, in math, if you finish a problem, you want to know right then, did you get it right or not? So I think that setting that up would be really important. So if you're going to know such a time, this is when you're going to get it.
Clear expectation of what's going to happen. And you know, we know that that is written in our syllabus, right? Yeah. Everybody has that written in their syllabus. And how many times do we get questions? Even most courses include a quiz on the syllabus too, right? Yeah. To make sure that they've read that syllabus, but that doesn't always happen, or they don't always remember for very long. So communicating that clearly.
I was going to say, sometimes after grading like 50% of the class, I will send out a little bit of
feedback,
Uh-huh.
overall feedback of what I've seen from the class and say, hey, I'm still grading, this is where I am.
So
But I
while
just
you're in
wanted to let
process.
you know that this is what I'm seeing, these are the good, these are the bad,
Oh, that's excellent. So that they're aware that you're not ignoring them. I'm in the middle of grading this, and here's some ideas already, some feedback. Wonderful.
Along the lines of the automatic grading, there are some cases I do see in my course where it could be done automatically, but they may have overlooked that. And that's definitely something you can tell your OCR and they can go back in and fix that. And I know it's alleviated frustration in my class. We've done that and taken away some of the burden of grading that.
Oh, absolutely. And if you've been around in these online courses for, a couple of years, you've seen that progression. These classes are in process. There is almost nothing that is set so hard in stone that they won't, your OCR or the course lead and the course team that's over that won't look at that again and say, have we missed something here? Can we do something better? They're always looking to improve. And because of that, we should never be afraid to share feedback from our students that might be critical of how something is done or something's broken and not working, because they are going to look at that and they want to know, honestly, what is happening and what can we improve. And it's the same for us. We don't have to worry about these
One of the
insights.
things that I can do in Canvas, when I teach, I design and teach courses in Canvas also,
Neat.
is if the student turns in the assignment early, I can grade it or have my TA look at it.
Well, how nice to have a
And
TA.
then what they can do is if they want to resubmit it before the deadline, it will be regraded.
Yes.
They get feedback and they can make those corrections. I can't see how to do that in any way in
Right.
that Brain Honey.
Right. Well, in Brain Honey, at least in my course, and you tell me if it's the same in your course, if they do it within the week that it's due or before the due date, they can go back multiple times and improve. How many of you have a course setup that's like that, where your student gets more than one opportunity to do it? How many of you don't have more than one opportunity in your courses, that they just do it and it's over and done?
Yeah.
Interesting. Will that change for you when we switch over to the new system?
I would hope so.
Hopefully.
I have no control over that.
And to me, that's a critical point, because where does learning really occur? I mean, you study, you learn, you show what you've remembered, and maybe it's only in your short-term memory for that matter, a fact anyway. But when you go back, when you review, when you see what you've missed and how to fix it, that's where true learning is happening. That's where they're improving. That's where they're growing the very most, because then they're learning and gaining a skill that maybe they thought they had and they had wrong, or they didn't have it all to begin with. And I see that as this number 2 thing. 23% of our students feel that need. They want to improve. They want to overcome their mistakes. They want to become better and proficient in the things that they're doing. And if we don't help them more with this, how can they? If they're stuck, I mean, we can show them what resources they can go to, but sometimes they get in that mindset of, I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. I just don't get it. And that closes the door to everything. That closes the door to the spirit. You're done. What can we do?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
doing a separate thing.
That's okay. We can switch gears.
Well, I was just thinking how it kind of relates. How it's interesting that in the instructor categories, we feel like we need to use more varieties. Oh, they do too. Never mind.
They did have variety on here. They like to see a little bit of variety. And I think they do compare in their, at least those that have access to each other in the pathway classes, they go to their gathering, and a lot of times they compare to see what's happening. Yeah.
So my students complain that they can't really resubmit. And I've had students where if they get a low score, I want them to resubmit because I want them to improve. So I just do it by email. And then I just go in and change the score because that's something that I can do. So,
Yeah.
and I've had a student who 3-4 times she's sending me till she finally got it. And I'm like, okay, this is so much better. This is what we're supposed to do. And I went in and changed the score.
So you've let them turn it in a different venue through email.
Yeah.
Nice.
So my question on something like that is, how does that work in, like, let's say that then that student, well, I guess for me, I teach the very first pathway class.
Okay.
And so that's the first experience they have with the university. So one of my students said they want faster grading times, which honestly, I grade their assignments within like 2 to 4 days of them submitting
Wow.
them.
And they don't realize that's outstanding. You're like a number 2.
Yeah, so now I'm setting that standard for others. So if I allow my students to resubmit assignments, and they matriculate into the online degree program, how, like, are the,
Setting up some expectations.
yeah,
setting up
not
some
really
expectations
allowed?
that aren't.
I mean,
That
is
is a
that fair
very
and allowed?
good
Because
point.
I know when I went to school on campus here, I didn't really have that option very much to turn in an assignment when it's due, and if I don't get the grade, I won't be able to resubmit it. So that's where I kind of find some.
That's where you have to look at how the course is designed. Does it allow it? If it allows it, if our OCRs and our course committee has set it up that way to allow it, maybe that's intended for that week. If not, maybe that's intentional also. We need to be communicating closely with our TGLs, our AIMs, and especially our course councils so that we know what the expectation is on which assignments.
Because, I know some of my assignments they can retake, but others they cannot. So
Absolutely.
is it like that for a reason?
And I've taught both pathway classes and non-pathway classes, and I know in my non-pathway classes, unless there was, impending death or something like that, there wasn't very much room for retakes.
Well, and this is an English class. I'm thinking with English, it's constant revision.
Yes.
And so I think that if the student can revise and then finally get it, and I think as they move into higher English classes, that's also something that's going to be available. So I tell them, you need to know the skill for upper level English classes, and so you need to make sure that you're getting it before you
Yes.
Yeah, it really depends on the course.
And possibly just communicating that I'm allowing you to do this now because you need this growth to succeed, but it won't be like this later.
So I teach one of the very last classes they take.
Oh,
so
wow.
research class. And they don't get to submit their things more than once. You do it once, but they get to turn it in advance if they would like review, and then they can make the revisions because we can't allow them to retry it.
Right.
My students are graduating. But we do have some of that problem where they have had previous classes where they get to do it over and over.
And so
And
then
they
it's
come in and they're
false
like, what's this secret? Why are you so mean to me?
You probably spend a lot of time explaining in advance. Turn this in advance.
But they do have the opportunity to turn the feedback in. If you're conscientious enough to want the feedback, then turn it to me 2 days in advance, and I'm happy to get that.
And that is exactly what is needed, right? They want help with mistakes. That's their number 2 thing. Okay, yes.
My biggest frustration with feedback was that and I teach the first pathway class, is that you have students that range from here to here. And what you want with the student is you want an ongoing progression. And so you get confused. I would give feedback to this student, and then what I want to do is when I go to give the next feedback, I want to either praise or remind. Now listen, last time we talked about this, and I see you're doing it. That's wonderful. Congratulations. Or last time we talked about this, I see you're not doing it. How can I help you? But what's missing here is when I pull it up to give the feedback, I'm going in my mind because you don't have time to copy and paste.
For everything.
Do you know what I mean? What I felt frustrated was because when you're face to face, I teach children in my other life, and you have them here, you know exactly what you talked to them about last time. You know exactly whether or not they did it, and they feel that you're checking up on them. And if you don't have that, you feel like you're giving the same feedback again and again, and they get that impression too. That teacher doesn't really know. That teacher doesn't remember what they said last time. And so I'm just expressing this as if anybody has a solution, because it was too much labor for me to keep a page on each student and write down what we're working on. Do you know what I mean? It became cumbersome. It became overwhelming.
Because there are some teachers that keep a spreadsheet and they copy out the feedback they've given them and they follow it day to day. And that can be, you've got 60 students, that's an overwhelming process. Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know brain honey, at least what I do, because pregnancy brain and mom brain is just a bad combination. I don't remember their names sometimes, but if you go in, they have feedback that's visible to them, and then there's a notes to self function, which is invisible, and it's only you that can see it.
But where I never saw or found where you pull that up to look at
Well,
it.
you should just that's only specific to that one assignment. So
Right.
you
have
the next week.
Right. So the next week, but you plant a flag for yourself. So you say, hey, on this assignment, I recommended 1, 2, 3. And so then the next time you meet with them, you can just pull up their assignment and be like, oh, hey, I saw that you were revising this or working on this. How's this going for your feedback? And then it's like when you need to get to that student and that assignment specifically, then you can pull up that invisible feedback instead of having to try and do a bunch of different documents.
What I'm hoping eventually will happen is that they'll create those files for each student, and then it'll automatically date stamp and transfer it to the file, so that when you pull up their assignments, wherever you're.
You pull up their name and you see all your feedback for the
Next
whole
to it, it'll be
semester.
all their feedback. Now they can capitalize, now they can period, let's work on grammar.
Then
And
they
that's in a perfect world.
In our perfect world, talk to IT, send them your ideas. I don't know if that's possible, but as my husband here works in IT for the church, and I'll tell you, he gets probably requests like this all the time. They can do a lot. Well, you guys have led us perfectly into the next little bit, and we're going to spend 2 minutes looking at some templates because, well, and those are the expectations. You can read those. Oh, let me pull this down. This is where feedback shows up in our course rubric and the standard for assignment feedback and inspiring a love for learning. Feedback shows. Well, there it goes up. So you can take a look at those. This is what we get graded on as teachers. So our TGLs and our A's are grading us on all the time. And we want to demonstrate high love. We want to demonstrate high expectations in all areas of our teacher and especially in our feedback. And it's hard to read there, but we've got, we should be giving regular assignment feedback. And in some of these rubrics, it actually says that all of our assignments should be receiving feedback. We want to reach that 7. I don't know how I feel about that. Not all of our assignments, if you have, a pathway class, there's a plethora of assignments, not just a matter of, 2 or 3 assignments a week, might need feedback, but I suppose that depends on the course, and you'll know that. But anyway, here's some examples of some templates that might be used, and I want you to just spend just a minute before we have to go to the next page. Taking a look at these and what ideas we could use to improve this. The templates are helpful, they help us get the idea across, but there's definitely things that we can do to reach that number 1 need of the students and the number 1 thing instructors said that they could improve by making it personal, individual. It's kind of like what you were talking about. And how we can do that using these templates, which can become repetitive. And if you've ever gotten in a hurry, maybe you've done what I've done once or twice, and just looked at the assignment and said, these are all pretty much the same, here's the same feedback. We want to get away from that. We don't want to make it the same for everybody because everybody's not the same. I think our biggest need, and maybe we can trace this back to the Spirit, is discerning by the Spirit. That's why we pray for guidance before we start. What is needed for that student? But in the meantime, we're creating these great templates, or trying to create great templates that can give some feedback, but then add to it. So this one says, great job on your assignment. You met all the requirements on the rubric, except 1. And then maybe you can think about it for a second. What would you add to that? What would make this mediocre template, maybe not so good template, better? Yeah.
I have templates similar to that, but they're specific to assignments. So I might say, instead of great job on your assignment, something a little more specific. What did you do that was great? Like you wrote a really great main idea statement, because there's an assignment where they have to write a main idea and they also have to summarize. So I've got 2. One was you wrote a great main idea statement, but your summary is a little too large. Let me help you. And my templates often lead into where I personalize. And then I have another one that says your summary was really awesome. Let me help you with your main idea statement.
So depending on which one that they needed, where they made a mistake. Awesome. And that's exactly what's needed here, isn't it? It needs to be specific. It needs to go and tell them where their mistake was. This doesn't tell them anything. Yes.
Sorry. And one other thing on that one, it's in template too, is to include their name. I think that is just a huge
Have you ever gotten feedback from an online course? How many of you have taken an online course? And we know that there's form letters, right? That your name can be automatically put in there. But even knowing that, when you get feedback that has your name on it, you pay attention a little bit more, don't you? At least I do. I sit up and I take notes and I might read it because I think, oh, even if this is a template, maybe it's just because I know what I know as an instructor, there's probably things that they have personalized in here for me. Yeah. So, just in the interest of time, let's look at this next one. And I know that's really small. It says Tom, which included his name, which is a good start. I really liked the chart you created. Your spreadsheet had lots of color and was very organized. Your English, on the other hand, needs some work. Please use capital letters, correct spelling, and punctuation in all writing. Okay, what is needed here? Can you see it? Yes. What's wrong with this template?
Yes, you really have to start with one thing, and they're gonna feel too overwhelmed if you're like, list off a laundry list of things that they're doing wrong. If you can say like, let's work on capitalization this week, and then get them to make sure that they understand when to use a capitalization. And then the next week say, great, you're doing great with capitalization, now let's work on punctuation.
So
Because
we're
it's
not
just too
in the
overwhelming.
business of overwhelming our students. Very good call. What else?
We need to take the time to make sure that our grammar and punctuation.
Oh!
We're not
capitalizing Oh, man. That is a huge call on this one. If we are not modeling what we expect our students to do, then they will know that it is just not that important, right? Very good. Anything else? Yes.
I do, I call it the Fantastic Four, because all of my students love superheroes. So
Oh.
immediately they're like, Fantastic Four, that's awesome. But I list, so on the template, I say, you know what, thank you so much for submitting, this is great. Here are 2 things that you did well and 2 things to improve. So they have the Fantastic Four all together.
Awesome.
That they can work
Ooh,
with.
I love that.
And then as a template, that limits me as an instructor because I don't have to say, okay, and you need to capitalize this sentence, and yes, you might want to check your spell checker maybe twice. You know, I can just choose, pick and choose.
Say that again. 2 things that
2 things that they did well, and then 2 things that they could improve on.
Nice. I like that a lot. Okay.
And you use that in all every feedback that you give them, so they sort of know that that's the formula, is that what you said?
Yes, but I tell them, okay, guys, when you get feedback, it's going to be in the Fantastic Four. So keep an eye out.
So
for
they're
this.
watching for
If there's something specific that you're worried about, I teach 106 as well. And when you're grading 25 essays a week that are, you teach 2 sections.
That's hard. 2 sections of that. Wow.
It's hours and hours and hours of grading.
Go ahead
But
and
if you
flip
limit it to
the last
this,
template.
then it gives them something specific to focus on. And it also just, I don't know, I felt like it really, and it helps me when my
Helps
brain is
you.
tired too.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to.
You don't have to feel like you have to have a laundry list like we were talking about. It's not overwhelming for you too.
Does your template have the Fantastic Four? Like, does your template include the 2 things they did well, or do you do that specific for each student?
When I do feedback on iLearn, I grade, so it has the rubric above. And so I'll go rubric, and then track changes in the document. And in the document, I type at the bottom, hey, here's your Fantastic Four.
Okay, so you don't.
So I number them 1, 2, and then 1, 2.
You don't have 4 things because
In
obviously
the template, that's going to be a little different.
It's gonna have different. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we are almost out of time. Did you have something quick?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think too that there's a lot of resources with that one, like direct your student to a resource
Oh,
that's helpful. Say,
yes.
next time before you submit this paper, I would love it if you would submit it to the Writing Center, or go back and review this
Right.
video that I posted about.
And those resources are a perfect thing to put in a template because they do help so many different areas and they can help so many different needs and questions the students have. Perfect. Well, just a final note. There are some things, and I think you mentioned a lot of these, to remember, and I called them the 3 N's for this first template. Add a name. That helps make it personal. Add an actual need that they have, not just said you missed one. Okay, name what that need is that they need to fix and maybe give them some resources on how to do that. And also, this one didn't really fit, make sure it's enough. Make sure it's enough to address the need. Not overwhelming, not too little, but just enough. And the only way to know that is really through the Spirit. You have to be spiritually in tune and discerning, what does this student need? That's where praying can help bring to your remembrance those things that are hard to remember when you have 60 students. How did I help this student last time? I don't know, but the Spirit does. And that's one of the biggest jobs of the Spirit, is to bring to remembrance. Because a lot of times it's already there. We just need to remember. And so much in our church has to do with just remembering and bringing it. And the Spirit can help us with that. And then over here for this one, I have the 3 M's. We'll end with this. The 3 M's are to make sure it matters. I'm not sure how much it matters if they've used color on that one. Maybe that was one of the criteria in the rubric, maybe not. But make sure that what you do say to them matters. Make sure that it's merciful. How many of you read Alan Young's post in the discussion board on the homepage of our community recently? this was one of the big points that he brought out, is make sure it is as merciful as possible given the student's level and stretching them, but yet stretching them. We don't want to set them up for failure later on when it gets a little bit harder, but we do want to be merciful and help them improve where they're at. So that's an important key component, and that's, think about how the Savior taught. This is how he taught. He didn't expect us to jump 5 levels instantaneously. He was merciful and helped us at the level that we are at. And finally, like we mentioned, make sure your feedback is modeling what you want your students to do. I didn't know when I started how much any of this would matter. A lot of it seems like common sense and that you're already doing a fantastic job with. But when we went to this meeting, this very last meeting with President Gilbert, he mentioned one thing that I just want to reiterate and share with you that I put on my phone. He said to remember that we're not just delivering curriculum, we're changing lives. And our greatest impact was the investment in the life of the student by a faculty so that they feel the love of the Lord and become a great student because they want to improve. I thought that was really insightful. That's where it's at. That's what matters. And it all comes back to how spiritually prepared we are. Even though that was kind of low on our list, it fits right along with what was number 1 on our list on both ends, that we need to have personal, individualized, caring feedback that helps our student connect to where they're at academically, but also spiritually.